I am joined today by the CEO of HAAH Motors Holding Corporation, Duke Hale. Thank you for joining us today on this Auto Tech Effects speaker series.
Yeah, great to be here and great to connect St. Louis with Irvine, California. Quite techy. You guys must like that.
It's unprecedented. We prefer a hybrid approach of being in person but using tech, but we'll deal with it knowing what we're dealing with in 2021. That's for sure.
Perfect.
So, this Auto Tech Effects speaker series is something that we've been sharing with the automotive industry public for the past 3 years, always tied to NADA. This year, NADA, National Auto Dealers Association, will be virtual for the very first time. In my professional lifetime, first time, I would guess to think that it might be the first time ever. Such a extravagant event in the automotive industry to promote all the wares related to it as we battle and manage the COVID-19 pandemic. What, in your mind, have you seen your team and your company adapt and adjust to over the last 12 months? I remember HAAH making so many announcements at last NADA, a lot of fanfare, a lot of excitement. I know that's when we came to know of HAAH Motors Holding. Give us some perspective from your side as you guys have navigated launching a brand new brand in the automotive industry under the conditions.
Well, at the very least, challenging for sure. We came out of NADA, just to give you an example, with close to, I think the number was somewhere around 250 dealers that were engaging with us, wanting to become a dealer in the marketplace. And I'm not talking, they casually dropped by and took a look at a car or an SUV, but they dropped by, spent an hour or so in the booth, engaged with our people, and took it to the next level. That sometimes would become an application, which, if approved, would become an LOI, and eventually they would become a dealer. That process, generally might take 60 days or somewhere, maybe a little south of 60 days, but somewhere in that neighborhood. But coming out of NAD, as we all know, we barely got home, and COVID was right on our doorstep. Let's be honest, we kind of all freaked out, right? It's something that in my lifetime, probably in your lifetime, we had never dealt with. And most Americans have never dealt with it. And so we kind of all freaked out, including car dealers. And, they were closing stores and people weren't even seeing sales, and it was a crazy world. And most of those leads fell flat. So that's kind of where we landed coming out of NADA, good for us and good for the world. That as it turned out, right, the auto business has been quite good. There's a lot of reasons for why maybe that is. Maybe people are a little fearful of getting in an Uber or a Lyft or other public transportation, and consequence, they need another automobile, be it used or new, to drive. The point is, car sales have been pretty darn good, and as a result, dealers have got back engaged with us.
Yeah, I couldn't echo your sentiments even more. We were all faced with unprecedented times. To go from a very robust year in 2019, full head of steam in early first quarter, to an enormous amount of uncertainty. What did transpire that we saw from a technology perspective was, for the very first time, because there was no alternative, the retail environment had said it's time for us to be able to engage people from afar and create a contactless sales process. And so much of the rigidity of, I'm a traditional dealer, I'm not going to sell that way, although they were fighting the Carvana, the Tesla approach, which is purely online. One of the things that intrigued us about HAAH was your consideration and approach to building a hybrid digital retail model. Could you give us a summary of how that is going to work with your new brands?
I would in some ways let's call us the Carvana of the OEM/distributor space relative to new vehicle sales. Because as we know, Carvana, at least at the moment, only sells used cars. So we will offer very similar things and plus some other things that maybe Carvana doesn't offer. For example, to my knowledge, we are the only brand that's coming to market in the near term that's using dealers, that have announced that we're going to use dealers. So if you think of Tesla, who's already here, down through NIO, Rivian, and the list goes on. All of those, to my knowledge, have been discussing a way of doing business without dealers. We think the answer is 100% using dealers with this different digital retail experience. Maybe another way to think of it, if I was framing it a little bit, is I would say, and maybe you're too young for this, and maybe some of the listeners are too young for this, not all, but we are the Saturn brand on steroids. We are a combination of Saturn, Carvana, Apple. We want to be Amazon-like. So we're a combination of a lot of those types of brands that we've talked about.
I think that's a very interesting approach. One of the things we've learned in the ability to execute. That's one thing that most people don't really focus on in business. It's one thing to talk about things. It's another thing to execute and to see automotive industry adapt and then execute on these strategies is what I think the public wants, but moreoverly, people want to see that implemented in the distribution chain. Adding the dealer to this strategy is unique. You would be the very first organization to be able to say, look, we have a digital retail strategy. Mr. Consumer, let's take you through the process that you've told us you want, but ultimately create dealers that almost become fulfillment centers. It's almost like you were able to pick up your vehicle, get the professional product specialist experience to take delivery of the car, but the friction, as they call it, of buying the car is up 2 or 3 levels. It's digital. It's consumer centric. But then the ultimate thing, right? Because that's why people are in business, is the monetization of being able to share that. So you're taking advantage of a dealership organization that has the ability to deliver a vehicle, the infrastructure to deliver a vehicle, but also give them help where they are still challenged, which is in the digital retail side of it. And that is a unique proposition. So I'd ask this, was the fact that you were brand new as an organization and didn't have a lot of legacy technical debt or legacy technical infrastructure approach, does it allow you to basically execute on this strategy better than maybe an established brand?
Well, I think there's no doubt. And we probably are largely doing it like, I would suggest if I brought you into a room and I brought a bunch of dealers into the room and a bunch of other tech people into the room and even consumers and I put them all in this room and we were to have this large major focus group. And from that group, I think what we would hear is all the things that we are building. It's the way that dealers, it's the way that consumers, it's the way that people want to see things built. And I think some others perhaps may know this, but if you're an OEM, and I'm not picking on Toyota, GM, Ford, Chrysler, Honda, the rest, but the truth is they got their legacy issues, right? They have certain things in place that would be, I won't say impossible, but not probable, and probably would take a lot of time and a lot of money to try to build something like they'd probably like to build it today. For example, we're one price. We're no haggle. We're no hassle. In many markets, we have dealers that have taken multiple points. I'll give you just a couple of examples. Houston, the dealer took all 5 points. Northern Virginia, DC, the guy took all 5. San Antonio, he took them all. Austin, they took them all. Oklahoma City, they took them all. Indianapolis, they took them all. I could go on. So that's a pattern. That's a Saturn pattern there.
Yep.
Of old, but that's a pattern where the dealer can execute his processes, his plans, his ability to service customers, is digital experience, the ability, frankly, to control growth. A lot of those things they can execute by doing it that way. We're a proponent of that. That's not to say in every market it's that way, but we are a proponent of that. So online merges with offline in the reverse. It's a new generation of commerce. It's a new way of hybrid retailing. So in our way of doing business, if a consumer says, I don't ever want to go to a dealership in my life, I'm dealership adverse. Well, guess what? They can do everything from beginning to end online. And by the way, we'll deliver the car to their home or the SUV if that's what they choose. If they want to go to the store and they're older, maybe they're a little more traditional in nature, and they want to do it the traditional way, they can knock their socks off. We'll allow that. What we're trying to provide is exactly what the customer is looking for. But we know in looking at the research, particularly millennials and Zs, they don't like the old way. They don't like the traditional way. They don't want to spend 3.5 years. Sometimes it feels like 3.5 years. They don't want to spend 3.5 hours shopping in a store. They don't want the negotiation. They don't want to be put in the box in F&I and spend another hour being hammered on things to buy. It's not what they want. They want exactly what Amazon's going to provide. That's what the research shows. So, we're going to where most of the fish are if they're Zs or millennials. And we're going to do it with not only the consumer role, but we got some things we'll be doing for the dealers too. I mean, we have, to my knowledge, we'll have the first unified cloud-based platform of any OEM or any distributor in the country. So our whole process will be seamless, integrated for the dealer. The dealer will have DCS and DMS in one system.
One of the things I think you hit on really, really draws a lot of attention to this hybrid approach, and that is the monetization element of it. One of the things that we've seen over the last 4 years is a slow adaptation to a modern approach. I think people in the automotive space know that they have to adapt. I think the challenge had been prior to COVID was the fear that it would impact revenue and impact profitability. And I think what COVID might have done, if there is a silver lining, is express that people will allow you to present to them in a modern approach, to your point earlier, if it's transparent, if it's easily obtainable information, and they see the value in all of those types of things, whether it's F&I, whether it's the lease loan offering that you're going to provide them, plus a fantastic automobile. That in and of itself, whether it's millennials, Zs, and I would even argue, because I'm one as well, as a Generation Xer who bridges the baby boomer generation and this younger generation, that buying experience is something we've all really seen emerge over traditional retail. And so to see it in something that is the second most important asset in a person's life here in the United States is well deserved and well wanted. The idea of being able to monetize the process and share in this hybrid approach, would you say that gives you guys an advantage in delivering a brand new vehicle model and brand, but also meeting the demand of the consumer?
Yeah, I really think so. In fact, we hear the feedback we get from potential consumers, prospective consumers, and many dealers that we talk to. I mean, we talk to them daily, but we've had these 8 or 9 city tour that I mentioned to you, where we've seen a couple of hundred dealers or more. Some of the feedback we get is the number one reason we think people will come to the brand is because of the experience that we're creating. I think if we even look back, and we're more Saturn than Saturn, but if you get my point, but if we look back to Saturn, I think you'd find that the number one reason people came to Saturn was the experience. was the process. I think in that regard, we believe and we hear that that's how we'll be seen, followed by the vehicle. I mean, the vehicle is a star. I mean, it is one attractive vehicle. And when you hear the value proposition, it even gets better. In fact, I would rank them in that order. It's the process or the experience, followed by the vehicle, design, quality, stylish. It's a beautiful, I mean, they're beautiful vehicles, followed by the value. Some people might rank the value first because when you hear, we set a VX on the floor at the last NADA, you may have seen it. It was a white VX the size of a Hyundai Palisades or a Kia Telluride. It's a great hot segment, as you know. Well, if you look at a comparably equipped Kia Telluride or Hyundai, they're $50,000 the way ours was equipped at NADA. What if I tell you ours is 37? People go, really? 50,000 for the Telluride and 37 for this? Unbelievable. So it ranks still in that order, but if you think that that's largely correct, no wonder dealers in Houston and DC and other major markets are taking all the points in a market. They see the value in the total equation of what Tego and Vantis are going to represent.
You've almost reverse engineered the why of why you're bringing not only the vehicle, because anybody can bring an object to market and sell it as a good, but the experience, which sounds like you've focused on, really is meeting the need of the modern consumer. Digital retail, connected customer, being able to speak to them throughout their buying journey. The one thing that I wanted to talk about last year is you do have a great quality product. You're bringing it from Asia. It has a lot of appeal. It's got looks. It's got value. Tell us about some of the technology that's inside these vehicles coming. Are they hybrid? Do you have an electric vehicle coming? Tell us some of the technology that's in the first versions of these products hitting our shores, but then what might be coming down line.
The VX will be the first vehicle, which is a Vantis vehicle. It's the size of, as I mentioned, Telluride or Palisades. It's in the range of 37,000, front wheel, all wheel drive, a little bit of difference there, but largely well equipped. By the way, I'll add another plus or advantage we think for dealer and consumer is we'll only offer 5 or 6 colors. We may only offer one trim, well equipped, and all wheel and front wheel drive done. So now the point of that is the dealer doesn't have so many combinations. They can't possibly have the car in stock, which is generally the case with other brands. And the consumer actually can go there and anticipate that they have the car in stock that they want to buy. So it's very efficient from that perspective. So, but gas is going to be first. The second car is a TXL, which is a little compact SUV, similar price position, probably 15 to 20% minimum below the competition target. We had to hit where most of the fish are first, which is gas in most of America. But we'll follow right behind that with EV. I don't think we'll probably see hybrid in the near term. And what's so great for the dealer and frankly for the consumer, I think, is largely they may be in one showroom that's split distinctly into 2 brands. One side focusing on Tego, one side focusing on Vantis. It may be service and parts may be consolidated with another brand. You may see it on Auto Row. You may see it in a commercial area, like you might see Tesla in some cases. You may see it in a mall. We might have showrooms, not just a display area, but a real showroom manned with product specialists in a mall that has service and parts at another location, so that we're actually selling out of malls where we're So we're really flexible. We're really nimble. Dealers, when dealers hear the story, they love the story. The other thing I would mention to you to answer fully, hopefully your question, today, dealers are battered. I would almost call it abused by some OEMs that want Taj Mahals. They want these enormous facilities. We don't need a Taj Mahal. So if a dealer can build a showroom and it's only houses 3 cars, wow, 3 cars, 2 brands. Most people want 15 cars for 2 brands. That might mean that we make the rest of the center more about the experience and less about the car on display. We'll have some cars on display, but that's not going to be the primary focus. The focus is still, even in the store, on the experience. And by the way, dealers really like the story, and I think consumers are going to love it as well.
Well, Duke, I appreciate you taking this time to introduce to a larger public this innovative and very disruptive model that's going to really impact the automotive space. I'm glad to hear your dealers are embracing it, because change is hard. And you know, this is my 26th year in the automotive industry, so as a fan of innovation and disruption, it's refreshing to see a strategy that's in place and being executed. We look forward to the success of HAAH launching here in the next 18 months and following the technology journey of this hybrid retail approach. We think that's going to be something that the public will absolutely respond to. With that, I want to thank again this Duke Hale from HAAH Motors Holding in Irvine, California. Thank you, Duke.
Hey, any dealer out there that has interest, we still got a few points open. Send me an email, duke.hale@haahauto.com.